Welcome, everyone. Welcome. For a wonderful show. It gives me the greatest pleasure, having seen Stephanie on her first day at AU, to be introducing her capstone thesis. It's been a real pleasure to watch her development over the last years, and having already seen this wonderful show, it is the greatest pleasure that I am introducing it to you. It's also a wonderful moment because Stephanie is the first graduate in the new fine art program. So, and is going to be the standard to which all subsequent fine art students aspire. It gives me the greatest pleasure to pass over to the major domo for this evening, Timothy Allen, who has been her capstone advisor, and to introduce you to Stephanie if you don't already know her. Wonderful.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Professor Gwynn. Greetings to everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm Professor Allen, and I had the distinct pleasure to follow Stephanie Gandolfi on her capstone journey. Before I introduce Stephanie, I'd like to ask everyone to put their mics on mute, which I think everybody already has done. Well done. And at the end of her presentation, we will have some time for questions for any who would like to ask. Okay, this exhibition is a great moment for AUR. It's a great moment because it features the work of a fine art major who also majored in art history. Stephanie is our first double major. It's a great moment because it's the first capstone by a figurative painter working in the traditional medium of oil paint. And it's a great moment because her exhibition illustrates the significant development that a student can achieve in the craft of oil painting while simultaneously earning an American undergraduate degree. She has set a new bar of excellence while making it look deceptively easy. Finally, if I may, it's also a great moment for me as a teacher. She is the first student I've had the pleasure to work with over multiple semesters and see graduate. I first started working with Stephanie in the spring of 2019 in the context of an independent study, which had her come to my own studio once a week. I'm sure we each had questions about how exactly things would work out, but lucky for me, she was from the start eager to learn, intellectually engaged, and keen to hone her craft. We got along swimmingly, and her capstone achievement is the dream of any teacher, a confirmation that the legacy of the respective craft and concept is safe in her hands. So without further ado, I'm very proud to introduce Stephanie Gandolfi, and I will share my screen and take us to the exhibition here. There we go. Let's see, did I do it? Share. And did I get it right, Stephanie?
Yeah. So for those who doesn't know me, as Gwen and Timothy pointed out, I'm the first double major within the new program to graduate, and I'm here to present my capstone today. And thank you everyone who decided to use their Thursday evening to be on Zoom in my virtual gallery that we have put together. As some of you might have noticed, I called my presentation Layers a Retrospective. This was because this exhibition presents a summary of my time at AUR. So as Professor Allen already said, my medium has primarily been in oil painting and drawing, and all of the images that are presented here today are representational images, meaning that everything that I've created from AUR has derived from real object sources. So you're going to see a good combination of figurative work, still lifes, and landscapes today. So we start here today at the hens. I made a whole series of hen paintings, but I selected two just to show them, because when I started AUR, or when I started painting, I had never worked with oil paints. So the approach to the artworks made in 2017 and 18, we were given the choice of what to paint, but we were provided with the imagery from the professor we had at the time on what we were going to work on. So I chose chickens or hens simply because my mom likes them. So I wanted to see if I could capture the individual uniqueness or character. And at this time, I also kept my brushstrokes really free and fluid, and I allowed the chickens or the hens to form and emerge from the progressive layers. So here, if you see this one, and if you press next, you'll see the result of just this. In a private conversation with Gwen, he told it was a humorous addition to the, added a bit of humor to the exhibition, which I like. So if you press next, we then had to choose a Italy theme for our painting class, and we had this beautiful lemon tree in our backyard that I wanted to paint, but the professor instead provided me with 11 lemon branch reference photo so I could work from it in the studio, and this is the result of that. But I continued, as you could see, to work with high chroma, so colors that came directly out of the tube without mixing them. And I applied more smoother brush strokes and than what you saw with the hands, and just kept learning the medium of oils. So the next project, I wanted to work more with texture because I gotten a hint of that with the hands. So I made a mixed media piece that started out as a palette knife acrylic painting of Le Como, and it eventually became a digital work where we increased the saturation and the textures within the landscape with the help of Adobe Illustrator. But I quickly found out that digital work or acrylic paint wasn't for me. So I proceeded with oil paintings. So if you press next, I then created 2 identical egg paintings that I created because I thought it would be the most natural sequence to the chickens. No, what came first is the chicken and the hen? No, the chicken or the eggs. And for me in painting, it was the hens, and then I painted eggs. And the composition is the same and the imagery is the same, but the rendering is slightly different also in terms of color choice as well. And hopefully this exhibition will proceed in a way that reveals that my techniques and ideas developed. But in the beginning, as I already stated, I was starting to familiarize myself with the medium first and foremost. So these artworks that you just saw were what I mean, my first year at AUR, so 2018. And they were a good selection or representative of what kind of style and technique I was doing then. And then if you press next, we will come into 2019, which was when I started collaborating with Professor Allen in the independent study class, where there were transition here from working from photography to working from life. But I was continuing the theme with eggs and kitchenware. So there were 2 things that was happening in the independent study. First of all, I was getting the experience from working from life and what it means to work indirectly in terms of how we build the layers to make a painting. But I also must say I became a true apprentice based on how many canvases I needed to stretch the very first day in Professor Allen's studio. So I did some of the heavy lifting too. And I mean, up until now, I had only used panels to paint on and I'll find linen canvases. So this was a significant change in my painting experience as well. And I remember specifically, he told me to write down 3 reasons for why we prepare our own canvases. First and foremost, because of cost. Second of all, pride. And third, knowledge and craft. So if you go to the next one, Professor Allen, he was right. Creating these 2 still lifes, I did feel I knew a lot more about the materials I was dealing with. But I also got a sense of pride in my artworks by the fact that I stretched my own canvases and I painted on them. So that was part of an experience as well. And if you press next, we come to the plein air part of the AUR experience. And I mean, this exhibition is called Layers, a Retrospective, because I'm showing all the various experiences we had in the various art classes. And with plein air, we're obviously talking about painting alla prima, or wet into wet, as opposed to layering paint as we see with the works I created in the independent study. Next. And creating these landscapes was such a great experience because we got to go to the nearest parks and sites around our campus and paint one painting every class. And I think we ended up about having 10 plein air paintings. So if you press next, you might seem it's a bit odd that I have a still life in there, but let me tell you, every day is not a plein air day. There were rainy days, windy days, so we needed an indoor project on these occasions, and we just continued practicing our indirect painting techniques. And here, in comparison to all the still lifes or landscapes just seen, we had to learn that we could also work with a very limited palette or restricted palette. So this still life in particular is just made up out of 3 colors. And I thought that was really fascinating to see how you could mix so many various values and colors based on 3 colors and the effects you can create once you let it dry or you paint wet into wet. So if you zoom out, Professor Allen, and just look at this wall in general, let's see, with the independent study. Let's see. This corner just represents the transition from working on photography sources to working from life, that being still lifescapes. And in this context, we're dealing with 2 different ways of painting as well. Indirectly, as you've understood, is where we are building up the layers, or directly where we're painting in one shot. So mix everything up on our palette and we just get the clay on the wheel. And I think we're ready for the next section, because after the independent study in plein air, I continued to work from life, but we switched to the figure and portraiture painting. So there were 2 dedicated classes for this. And here you can see my best friend, Sophie. This image shows how we would begin a portrait class. We created 6 different underpaintings like these with different washes or imprimatura. However, these underpaintings were made with the intention to be layered at a later time. But then the pandemic hit, so we were unable to finish them. So in the studio, we had to leave 6 unfinished underpaintings there. But in the second image, if you press next, there's another image of Sophie that was just after 2 sessions, but it shows you how it looks when I begin the indirect painting technique to build up the layers. Unfortunately, I was unable to finish it, but also in these painting sessions, we would sit in different angles, different places. So we would get different viewpoints of the face each class. But I only included the 2 of Sophie here to illustrate that. But something I do want to say or point out, being completely new to figures or portraits, is that I gain a newfound appreciation of rules. I mean, proportion keys were our holy grail. Big proportions, when we talk about relationships or ratios between heights to widths to depths of a subject, this became constant throughout the entire semester. So as beginners, these rules were really nice to have because they made everything less overwhelming. At least I think that. So if you press next, and that especially was useful when we began the life-size figure painting of Anna. So the figure painting was developed over the course of an entire semester. I feel at this point I'd become more confident with sculpting the image and the understanding that we could build it and develop it. I didn't necessarily finish the details of the face and the hands and the feet, but that wasn't necessarily the goal of the artwork either, but to instead get a sense of the whole, because I quickly understood that the figure is more about just shapes, muscle, bones. It's about movement, weight, balance, tension. It's about studying the model's weight-bearing leg or how they position their hip to hold a certain pose, and then to accurately capture this all in one painting. So we had the portrait classes to focus on the head and its details. So here we focused on the whole. But if you press next, Professor Allen, you do have a close-up of Anna's head. Even in the context of a full figure, I was very much interested in the portraiture aspect in developing the head. So I was attracted to the idea, but this was what I could achieve in the time span that we had. And then if you press next, from the portrait class, when it came to the end of the pandemic, we had all returned home. So we were assigned a final project to do a self-portrait. So working from life still, but through a mirror, which was really challenging considering I decided to paint myself with my glasses. So I swear to God, I became cross-eyed by the end of the semester. It was awful. But this is a detail because I wanted to show that, because you could see how I am building up my legs, but also learning how to not only work indirectly, but also think about things like temperature, how temperature is important in the construction of skin tones. So if you press next, this was a self-portrait that I did in the end of my junior year. And then part of my capstone, I tried to tackle another self-portrait. So if you press next, we can take a look at that. So one of the things that drove our conversations when looking at other art was looking at other artists and trying to use them as inspiration. So one of them was a painting that a classmate brought to class that had this really beautiful voluminous shoulder. And I think from a conceptual point of view, I wanted to find a way to integrate that into my own self-portrait. And another painting I was looking at was The Girl with a Pearl Earring by Vermeer. And in the beginning, in constructing my own painting, in fact, my eyes in comparison to the girl with the pearl earring was actually staring out of the canvas and not directly at the spectator. But seeing that I had used Vermeer as a source of inspiration, I changed that last minute to angle them more directly to the viewer. And then I developed the concept of a dark background, and actually in all of my paintings from this semester, as you will see later, there's a dark background, which became kind of like the iconic style of this semester, because I found out that there was something quite beautiful with it, as I felt it contributed to direct the focus at the subject. And also I wanted to let you take a note that I added my own earring and not a pearl, because it was a gift from my aunt and uncle, and I have had them on every single day since I got them. So that's kind of iconic for me. And as Professor Allen has done here, he has zoomed out just so we can do a quick comparison, because although I still have a long way to go in terms of portraiture and figure painting, I'm quite pleased to see the comparison between the two. I'm quite pleased to see some development in drawing, the way I'm learning my craft, learning how to manipulate and turn form, to manage light and to relish in the subtleties that are possible in oil painting. But also just thinking about this in terms of development, also making my own decisions. The fact that I was going back to sources, taking aspects of their work that I found appealing to then integrate into my own work, that I was able to do last minute changes without any problems. And that form of conceptual thinking were just not present in 2017 and 18 when I started painting. And this leads me to the next wall, which is the drawing wall with side-size drawings and broad plate drawings. Because the same year, there was also a focus and emphasis on drawing and calibrating the eye and developing a sensibility to proportions. So we used broad plates and casts for our observational skills. So this one in particular is, we studied the plane of the heads with a cast, and after drawing the life-size figure of Anna, the figure, I think this was absolutely necessary, as we could understand forms better when looking at it in simpler terms. So we were kind of taking a step back. So the head drawing methods are giving us two essential benefits of photographs can never provide, which is first and foremost the relationship of the features, that we could be able to see all the features or the planes and how they were connected to each other. Also a way to label what you see and not what you know. So the next one, here I have added a little step-by-step in constructing a drawing based on a Roman foot cast. And I just wanted to show the importance of rules and how we strictly keep to them. And by doing so, I think it created a really beautiful drawing. Next, I of course could not do comparative measurement exercises without revisiting the eggs. So I set up a shadow box with the eggs on a kitchen cloth, which is in fact the same kitchen cloth as I used for my final still life that I will show in a bit. But a funny story about these eggs, they became central for the next drawing project. So if you press next, Professor Allen, I started thinking about the importance of eggs, not only in terms of what they might mean or in terms of their symbolism in reference to everyday life, but also its significance in the development of forms and the recognition in thinking in terms of egg shapes and how this can be quite useful. Perhaps the most obvious place to look is in the muscles of the arm, and also when you're drawing or painting an egg, you think about how you're going to develop that egg to give a form composed of shadows, halftones, lights, highlights. And this manner of thinking was directly applied when drawing the muscles in this painting in order to get that sense of volume that the arm needed. And then the next one is another bar plate drawing of the head of Parthenon. And these drawings were essential tools for our toolbox that we could take into our paintings. So the culmination or the embodiment of my journey has led to these final three paintings that you will see on the right side of the wall, and including the self-portrait that you just saw. And this was a painting I made of my boyfriend's mother. We had a crit among the students and the professors, and they stated that they thought this should be the star of the show. And in terms of development, I was in a much better position to make my own decisions this semester. And working with photographs, the decisions has already been made for you, because in a photograph, everything has already been determined, the composition, light, no hierarchy. And then suddenly I had to be more attentive and decisive on what I was making. And I think even from my self-portrait, this portrait of my boyfriend's mother, who's here today, shows better manipulation of skin tones, in the sense that I've managed the values better and the proportional relationships, but also considering other aspects like doing an asymmetrical composition. And in general, I just think she has a really interesting expression in her face. And another factor with working from life was the time aspect. I spent the entire semester working and studying and becoming one with the portraits and still lifes. So talking about still life, that's a good segue to the next final project. People keep asking me, why still lifes? And I think it's because I gained a newfound appreciation for still lifes after my independent study. And it is definitely going to be something that I'm gonna continue doing. I think there's just something beautiful with objects that have been staying dusty and shelved for so long, essentially just waiting to be discovered. And then I was able to translate that into a painting. And I find that really beautiful. So when it comes to composing the still life, I thought about everything from chroma to edges to color to space, the amount of objects, atmosphere, various textures, bread, glass, ceramics, knife, cloth, all essential elements that I have learned to think about throughout all the other artworks leading up to this one. And as well, here you can see again the backdrop to make the subject become the focus. And me also to my last and final still life. If you press next. I think people in general has this misconception that a still life is just objects that you throw together and you paint, but I think that's entirely wrong. In general, what I learned from these two still lives were to start thinking about the whole composition. I used hours of setting up and getting the right objects up for an interesting composition. Just think of the idea of hierarchy, for example, just learning how to move people through a painting in an illusional space and ways to manipulate that by controlling the light, textures, values, volumes, emphasis, contrast. There were a lot of things to think about. It wasn't just thrown together. And in addition to that, we looked at Chardin for direction and diagonals. We looked at Velasquez for eggs for solidity. We looked at David Gray for the picture. We looked at Professor Allen's own artwork for cloth and composition. So I have my gratitude to my sources, whether living or dead. And so over the course of 4 years, when I started painting the chicken paintings, little did I know that it would lead to what I ended up gravitating towards, which was eggs, which you have seen been a recurring theme throughout the entire exhibition. And I think there is something quite poetic that I started off my AUR career with the chicken and the egg, and I managed to end up with a still life that included both subjects. So in the still life, you saw that there were eggs, but there was a egg holder that's shaped like a chicken. And I will definitely keep working with painting and still lifes. And this semester especially, I think I've started to form my own voice and style, and I can't wait to see where this takes me next. And I also wanted to give an extra thanks to Dr. Gwynn and Professor Allen for allowing me to complete my semester at home. And I think despite this, I was able to create some work that I'm really proud to present today. So I hope you enjoyed the virtual exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Can I ask everybody to turn their microphones on, please? I still see mutes. There we go. And can we give her a round of applause, please? Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So if we have any questions, I'm sure she would be happy to take them, and I'm happy to steer us to any specific painting if somebody wants to. Here we go. Tor Olav. I just got a hand go up.
Oh, so I actually was, no, I can say something, but I didn't intend to. But I think I've been following now Stephanie for these 4 years. Like she sent me picture for picture, and now I can see all of them together. It's an amazing journey, I would say that. I can't just wait to see what happens the next 4 years, 8 years, 16 years, 32 years. This is the start of a big journey. And as the dean of a business school, I can help you with the monetizing part of it.
Bravo, Tor. We need you to come do a 1-credit class then. We all need that.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Oh,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say absolutely amazing, Stephanie. I'm very, very much in love with the 3 chickens. But I really love your conceptual theme of layers. You know, we could talk about that all evening. But I think your skill, the development of your craft, I mean, in the middle still life, in the middle still life that we can see here, the reflection on that knife, just absolutely astounding. And Tim, you must be so proud as a teacher to produce, to hatch such an amazing chicken.
Yeah. Now I'm going to kick her out of the nest, though, Lauren. We're kicking her out of the nest.
I know. And, you know, I think we all need to buy up your work because I think you're going to be extraordinarily famous. So I might contact you later.
Yeah. Well,
I am on WhatsApp, so thank you though for all those lovely comments. It's been such an honor to be at AUR the last 4 years and also taking your class, Professor Golden. I mean, you finished up my art history bachelor's, so I think it's really iconic that you're here.
Oh, I wouldn't have missed it. I wouldn't have missed it. And just there's something very special about those last 3 paintings. I mean, the dark background, you know, we see the origins of that in Caravaggio, but he tends to be quite hard, even with his soft brush strokes. But these 2 last still lifes, especially the final one, there seems to be a certain intimacy in the way you have, you know, used your developed skill, the way you've used the paint, that even though the dark background automatically can bring something forward and can create a harsh outline that causes a sort of huge contrast between the background and the foreground. That I think there's a mastery in that coffee handle, in the way that that harsh contrast is not there. I mean, I don't know what Tim would say, but I would think that's much easier to do with a paler background to create that kind of blurring than it is to do with a dark background. And somehow this draws us in. It doesn't really feel like you know, some still lifes for sure in the studio, wherever you take whatever you've got and put it together. But it seems that there is a story here. How much of a story, who knows? And actually, who cares? Because part of the beauty of it is you can create your own story. And I think that's what makes this particularly magical.
Thank you.
Lauren, I think those are some excellent comments. And I think that much of what contributes to this sense of intimacy that you're referring to is this painting, and I think also the other still life as well, but this one in particular is rich in what I would call oxygen. And it's the atmosphere and her control of the light, and that I think really pulls you in. And I just think she has done magnificently in learning how to manipulate compositions, which is something that is just not easy to do, to be quite honest. And sometimes less is more, and oftentimes maybe less is more. So it's been a marvel to see her develop, and to see in these compositions how, in fact, sometimes taking things out has contributed to a dramatic improvement, as opposed to complicating the image, or feeling like there's not enough there. And so anyway, I just beautiful final paintings.
Tim, it's a universal appeal of the everyday. I mean, we all recognize something from our breakfast table. I think that's what makes this so lovely.
Yep.
And I think that mastery of the light and the atmosphere really shows itself in the portrait of your boyfriend's mother.
She is the beautiful wife of Thor, who's sitting next to Thor here.
And I think again that it shows the incredible skill that you've attained, because with such a dark background, the actual portrait could look like a cardboard cutout against that dark background. But the way in which you've managed to, it's not blended into the background, but it creates, I think Tim said something, it was another word, it was atmosphere and something else, but oxygen, that's it.
Oxygen.
Tim talked about oxygen. And I think that's a wonderful way to sum up just how alive this person is, and an incredible expression. It's almost like the Mona Lisa. Is she about to laugh? Is she cheeky? I'd love to be in the room with it and see what those eyes do if they follow you around the room. But the flesh tones and everything, coming back to Tim's word, this oxygen, that it's a living, breathing impression, if you can have the two together. Oh, and I love the still life with, is it an ostrich egg?
Yeah, it's an ostrich egg.
Yeah, that along with the 3 chickens, I think.
Yeah.
You're going up against the greats with that. Tim did one.
Yeah, after me though. Yes.
After you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting to know. And of course the great Piero della Francesca. So for me, especially the contrast of the organic material, I mean, to me that looks like a metal jar, but maybe it's not, but it looks like
it is.
Okay.
It is.
And to have the contrast of textures here is a real mastery. I mean, this could be from a Renaissance painting.
Yeah. But Lauren, I think it's so fascinating to see, if you think about this was where we started basically. And I guess there's, you could probably make the case that in future exhibitions, there's reason to put the images in more than once for ease of comparison. But if you look at that and then come back to say this painting, I think the development is just extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the ostrich egg, I have to say.
No, I like it as well, but I think she never failed to to raise the bar, to improve, and this last semester has been truly remarkable.
Well, I think any students following you in this new course have a lot to live up to. as Tim's just said, you know, you raised the bar so high. What is it? It's all on you now, Tim.
Well, you know, I'm about ready to. We should probably have a group toast. I think at this point, I'm ready to drink to that idea, Lauren.
Here's to many, many fledglings.
Yes, yes. Many new. Yes, I like it. Hatchlings. Many new hatchlings.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm shocked for all the comments. Thank you. And that so many people showed up on a Thursday evening. Wow. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Unless anybody else has any final comments, let's see. It looks like there's chat stuff happening here.
I think it's just praise. Oh, you're muted, Tim.
Oh, sorry. They're just giving you high fives and fist bumps and whatnot. So that's cool.
Awesome. All right.
Professor Gwynn, any final words? You're on mute too.
I think we're all agreed that this is a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, wonderful.
Absolutely fantastic. A great way to start. And I think it's inspiring. I mean, not daunting, but inspiring for the students that are coming up. I look forward to seeing the next generation of work after this.
It's very
excellent stuff, Steph. I wish you all every success in Sotheby's.
Thank you.
Yes. Best of luck to Stephanie on her next chapter. And we will see you this summer, though, in Rome. Correct, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'll be there.
We will celebrate together eventually.
And also, it was great that we could do this online. I see that my friend from Brazil is on, Ariana, who's a former student from the Netherlands, Ginevra. There's so many friends of mine from Norway here in the States, and I'm really grateful for everyone who joined today and could share this experience with me.
And also amazing that the technology of that. I thought it was beautiful. Who did that? Was that you, Stephanie?
Yeah, Tim and I, we downloaded Kunstmetrics, or we used Kunstmetrics, which the school uses, and we downloaded and we took photos of everything and we plotted it into kind of like a chronological theme order.
Lauren, I'm a big fan of giving credit where credit is due, and so we must tip our hat to Professor Bunning because she introduced that to us last semester, and so it's really worked out very well. Yes,
really amazing. Well, brava.
Well, thank you all. Stephanie, complimenti, tanti auguri, bravissima. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll just sign off here. Stephanie, why don't you and I just stick around for a minute and
all right.
We'll have a post-show wrap-up.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Adrian.
Well, stick around if you want or not. Oh no, he's still there. Good. Perfect.
I think. Ooh. Let's see.
Hang on a second here. Oh, there we go. Everybody's going out there. I'm gonna stop recording now.